Hello everybody and welcome back to the Two Norries podcast. I am your host James Ennard, joined as always by my good friend Timmy Long.
Hi everyone.
My cousin Roman is on the deck. Say hi Roman.
Hi Roman.
Our friend Grace is in the audience. Say hi Grace.
Hi Grace.
And this is the pinnacle or the highlight of the podcast so far. It's our 100th episode and we're in Cork City Lord Mayor's chamber, and it's a huge honour for us to be here.
Sure
with
is.
Lord Mayor Colm Kelleher, friend of the podcast. How are you keeping?
Very good, James. How are you keeping? Timmy, how are you?
Very well. Very well. Thank you for having
Welcome to
us.
City Hall.
No, delighted to be here, and you're accompanied by Mr. Dan O'Leary, Cork Life Centre. How are you, Dan?
Good, James. I'm Timmy.
Great to have you here.
Thank you.
And next to Dan is Miss Caitríona Twomey of Cork Penny Dinners. It's great to have you here.
Thank you.
You know what, it's great to be
Thanks
here.
very much.
Absolutely.
This is our 100th episode, and both of you were our first guests and the first few guests. You know, it was only not even 2 years ago, but so much has happened since. But we'll come to that, but out of respect, we have to start with the Lord Mayor. First of all, when you think about it, Colm, Mr. Lord Mayor, I should say.
Colm is fine.
Colm. When you think about it, imagine down through history, fellas like myself, Timmy, coming from where we come from, the backgrounds we come from, to be invited into the Lord Mayor's chamber, I think is a huge moment for me and Timmy. But it's a huge moment for the city too, and just to show that people can turn their lives around, and we live in a city where the second chance is available for people. So you've been instrumental in that. So thanks a million for the invitation to come here.
No, not at all. Not at all. As I know, I was, Dan and Caitríona were one of your earlier guests. I was a guest myself on your show.
You are?
I extended the invitation to that, and I didn't realise it would be our 100th episode. I'd just like to congratulate you on that. Well done. I think it's only fitting. Look, this is obviously the Lord Mayor's chamber, and it's the centre of civic authority in the city. But it's affectionately known in City Hall as the People's Sitting Room. Yeah. And the people of Cork City are equal in all walks of life. So.
And we got a great tour of it as well.
Yeah.
You gave us a free tour there earlier on, and the history in here is absolutely phenomenal. It's amazing, to see the history of this city and the real strength of the people from the beginning back in the early days when we had Thomas McCurtain, who's on the wall here, and Terence McSweeney on the wall here. Two real
Lord Mayors.
Unbelievable, and so are the people in this room today.
Yeah. You see, the People's Sitting Room or the Lord Mayor's Chamber is obviously the symbol of local authority in the city. But you've touched on it there. It's where every Lord Mayor, myself included, are living in the shadow, and rightly so, of our two martyred Lord Mayors, Thomas McCurtain, who was brutally murdered in front of his children on his 36th birthday, and Terence McSweeney, who died after 74 days in hunger strike in Brixton Prison.
Two Norries too, weren't there?
Two Norries.
Yeah. It's important to know what that
we have to get that in.
Well, to be fair, I suppose you're going to be small but disappointed now. McSweeney was born on the south side of North Main Street, and you could consider McCurtain an Norrie because he was born originally in Mournabbey.
Very good.
But two-man boys.
Two-man boys, yourself. But a lot of people in public life and organisations and politics and stuff like that, they espouse equality and all this, but you walk the walk, Colm, you know what I mean? And you don't just say, I believe in equal opportunities, I believe in people's capacity to change. We hear that all the time, but the actions then might be different. So, to be invited here is even pinch yourself coming in, And I was thinking to myself there, there's lots of history around here, and I was walking through the corridor and I see Mick Finn, he was my manager, and Tony Fitzgerald is a neighbour, and I see Dan O'Leary's brother was out there, and Micheál Martin's brother, and all these people, but it's tremendous honour for us to be here. But
I suppose what makes that happen then as well is your own experience in your own family, and having your own difficulties with addiction and stuff like that, and your understanding, and that's what it gives you when you can see it at the forefront of when it's happening in your own circle. You get a great understanding, and with that then comes wisdom as well, and you can have that empathy for anybody. We were in here earlier on, and we were listening to the lad in the bridge below. Homelessness is a massive thing. We'll get to that in a bit. It's a massive thing within our city and all over the country, but you have a great understanding around these issues, and even to give myself and James the opportunity to not just have you share your story below with us and tell us in depth how having somebody within your own family, how it affects the family members with addiction and stuff like, but to continue then and give us this opportunity to be in here like this.
Oh, look, it's only fitting. As I said, we affectionately call it the people's sitting room. Yeah. Everyone is equal from all walks of life, you know. Don't judge a man until you walk a day in his shoes. I suppose for your listeners, you referenced that we were listening to Your Man in the Bridge. Your Man in the Bridge. It's a fine sunny evening here inside in the city, and every evening there's a busker, and he's there with his fat oak straw and his tin whistle, and he's playing tunes, and the music bounces off the water, bounces off the buildings, and comes into the Lord Mayor's office. And most evenings, if I'm working late here, I'll have the windows open on a sunny evening, and I can hear him lamenting the city, which is something when I leave office, that is a memory that will really resonate in my head. But no, like to have, you know, you here is a massive honour for me. It's a massive honour for us as the city. On behalf of the city, I'd like to welcome you here. On behalf of the elected members of Cork City Council, I'd like to welcome you here. As I said, it's the people's sitting room. Everyone has a right to come in here. We've had kings, queens, ambassadors, presidents sit in this very chair where I'm sitting. This is the Lord Mayor's chair, but the furniture here dates from 1935. I was talking to James before we started the podcast, and we were giving him the tour, and you may not be able to see it now, but there's a false door to my right. And during the presidential visit of 1963, when President John F. Kennedy visited Cork, he was given the freedom of the city by former Lord Mayor Casey. And after the ceremony in the hall and the pomp and ceremony in the whole lot, they come up here to this office. So the president actually sat in the chair where I sit right now. And the Secret Service were in here, and there was a big crowd and all the kerfuffle. And that false door, which wasn't a false door in 1963, was actually the door to the bathroom. And at one stage, with all the madness that was going on, the Secret Service turned around and there was no sign of the president. So there was a big, you know, obviously, where's the president? And the story goes is the toilet flushed and the president walked out the door. So that side of the office is referred to as the Kennedy corner. And I said to James before we came on the podcast, he goes, that's where the president went to the bathroom. And he said, you can call it Jack's Kennedy.
Yeah.
Very good.
So I think that'll stick somehow.
But what's it like being the Lord Mayor? Like you've about 10 weeks left in your...
10 weeks left, approximately, give or take, 9.5, yeah.
What was it like? What's it like being the Lord Mayor?
Surreal. An absolute honour and privilege, something that I'll take to the grave with me. I'd just like to acknowledge this evening the sad passing of Toddy O'Sullivan's wife, the former Lady Mayoress, Mrs. O'Sullivan, passed away. So that I feel that needs to be acknowledged as former Lady Mayoress of the city. And we wish the O'Sullivan family, you know, our best on behalf of Cork City Council and the people of the city. Toddy O'Sullivan was a brilliant Lord Mayor in my own opinion. Different politics to me, but he was a powerhouse, to be quite honest with you. And you know, so sad to go so soon after Toddy went himself. But and the reason I suppose that sprung to mind is what's it like to be Lord Mayor. I attended the funeral of former Lord Mayor O'Sullivan, Toddy O'Sullivan's funeral. Obviously during COVID and stuff like that, it wasn't the same as previous Lord Mayor's funerals, because normally when a Lord Mayor passes away, there's one good thing about it: the city pays for your funeral, so the family don't have to worry about that. But I won't get to see it. But the Lord Mayor of the day would march behind the coffin, and the elected members of Cork City Council would march in robes behind the coffin. So I marched in the robe and the chain behind Toddy's hearse, and I spoke with members of his family. And Toddy went on to national politics. Toddy was a junior minister, and they said he spoke his fondest memory in politics was when he was Lord Mayor. So he went beyond this office to Dublin. He went national. And I think, you know, no matter what I may achieve, if I'm never again elected to office, I can always turn around to my kids and my family and say, look, I've been Lord Mayor of Cork.
We spoke to Taoiseach Micheál Martin on the podcast, as you know. He said best year of his life was when he was Lord Mayor.
Yeah.
And everything he's went on to achieve, but best year of his life, because like it's great, like we're Irish, you know what I mean? But by the grace of God, we're from Cork, isn't that right?
Yeah. I said there's something else to do with it.
I know, yeah. But I want to come to you, Dan. Dan, you were into politics back in the day. You know, you were still political, like, but you were a councillor here.
I was.
Did you get some memories walking around?
Not really. What
was it like back in the day?
Well, I suppose I just said a while ago that I'd been in this office on a number of occasions, some of them as a councillor, but during the hunger strikes, I kind of remember we coming in and taking the office over. So I suppose that there's been I've been in this office, but it's full of history, you know. I suppose for me, it's kind of mixed emotions really, because I think, you know, in the past when Toddy was Lord Mayor and when others before that were Lord Mayor, the council could do more. I won't talk about homelessness in a minute, but I think if the councils were still building houses, we'd have houses built. And I think Colm would probably agree with that, you know. And people failed to see that disappearing until it is. And there's lots of things like the refuse collection, house building, all gone, you know. And if you know, people talk about the building that was done in 1780, that emanated from here. You know, and I look at the two men and the third guy over here. You know, you had the three Lord Mayors of that period that were, you know, always talked about. I think they'd be kind of delighted to see how respectful people are still to the office of Lord Mayor. And I do think it's great to see a Lord Mayor going around to the schools in particular. And I think I think the Lord Mayors that I talked to, that would have been a highlight for them to go into schools and to mix with kids. There's very few. There's no other place in the country I think actually does that. It's only Cork.
I thought that was a good.
No.
No, it started by McSweeney.
Yeah, it was, and it's
a brilliant tradition.
It is, and I think it is giving young kids a chance to see. I said, Colm and every Lord Mayor, when minute to put that chain on, the kids see it like, you know, no matter where they are. How much is that worth? How much does it weigh? Yeah. And it's just, but it's done in a joyous way, you know, because it is. I mean, there's a sense, you know. I mean, you see the two men and the esteem they're held with right across, not just here, but across the world.
That's right. Terence McSweeney's like that was global news, like at the time, wasn't it?
Yeah. And for both men, it was global news, and then that's their chain. And every Lord Mayor, I think that's a great thing for the Lord Mayor to be able to say afterwards. You know, you sat where Lord Mayor sat, but wearing that chain and how important it is to the people of Cork. That's hard to beat. Yes. And I can see that, you know.
Yeah. Did you ever fancy politics yourself, Caitríona?
No, never. I was asked a few times, but it wouldn't be for me because, you know, and it's not that I don't have an interest, you know. I obviously watch and listen to a lot that's going on, and I like to see change, you know, and I like to see people that are in politics, politicians trying to make that change. And I do believe if there was more of them trying to make that change, that it would work. It's great, like that Colm is Lord Mayor now, you know, at his age, it's great to see somebody that has that on his side as well. Because
your birthday recently, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. So happy birthday.
Yeah.
And I've seen a lot of Lord Mayors. I won't say how many, but quite a lot. But he brings a different kind of feel to Lord Mayor. He's so approachable and so nice, and he has a genuine interest in what kind of everybody is doing. He seems to know about everything. God, I wanted to, is he up all night reading up on everything, because he does. He's a font of information, but and again, he's trying to make change here. And the Lord Mayor, you know, can instigate change. He can start to talk about it, but he needs the help of all of us to come together to get that through as well. So this is where we should all back each other. And I know recently, and probably, you know, coming in quickly, you know, the Lord Mayor has called for an injection centre here in the city. And, you know, while we all agree with what each other have to say, we need the wraparound services as well. But this is where the Lord Mayor has started it and needs the help.
This could be the beginning of some form of group to maybe get something like that off the ground as well. You know, where you're not on your own, where you've people that are on the same level as you here who would like to see the exact same thing. And in numbers, there's strength. You know what I mean? So I definitely agree with Caitríona.
I agree with you, and I do think though on the injection room and the clean needles and like they're essential. The Lord Mayor's about party politics, and in fairness, that's always been the way So like someone like Colm coming out and saying that, it's in the interest of the city. And I think it's in the interest of the young people of the city as well. And that's really good, and it should be acknowledged. Some people have left that go and not commented on it, but I think it's a really good thing that we have the Lord Mayor of the city saying this and meaning this, and someone that's approachable. Because I think the other thing about Colm is, and no matter where you see him, you can approach him. He's not standoffish. He's not going to look for you to bow first.
He spent long enough trying to get him out.
Yeah.
So I think in fairness, I think like something like that. That's what I mean by change.
Exactly.
And I think they can still do that. You know.
And you know, for people that didn't hear you on the radio, can you just reiterate what you did say the other day about the open injection centres and the importance of it to the city and what it would do for people that are addicted to drugs? And just to clarify as well, a lot of people that are addicted to drugs, like it's never something that they do wake up one morning and say that they want to. It's like they're using drugs and alcohol to be able to get through the day.
Coping mechanism.
Yes, coping mechanism. You hit the nail on the head there, James. Look, I've been on national radio to local radio stations. I've been in the Echo in relation to my viewpoint and my standpoint on a supervised injection facility, or as they're commonly known around the world, SIFs. Do you have these facilities in the likes of Australia, in Europe, and the Netherlands, in Denmark, San Francisco, in Canada? You know, there is massive benefits across a broad range of society from these centres. Now, I would agree 100% with Caitríona's standpoint. A supervised injection facility isn't going to solve our drug problem or heroin problem in the city overnight. It won't solve the heroin problem on its own. It's a large part, in my opinion, of a jigsaw. But you need all the other services to go with it, the wraparound services, the treatment centres, the counsellors, all the coping mechanisms, mental health services, sexual education services, all of them need to be tied into one. And I do know that you're all familiar with David Lane here in the city, with the HSE, and David is a champion of this cause as well. Yeah. And in fairness, like anytime I pick up the phone, David's always at the end of the phone, and he's a font of knowledge himself. Yeah. And he's singing from the same hymn sheet. The executive here in Cork City Council are singing from the same hymn sheet. I'm also chairman of the Cork Joint Policing Committee, and at a recent JPC we discussed this. And you are correct, Don. The Lord Mayor is apolitical. It's above all politics, and that's a necessity for any Lord Mayor. And I hope to only live up to that. But at the JPC, we got cross-party support. Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael, Sinn Féin, Labour, all of them, the Greens, to lobby the government for the money. So I've written for the minister looking for the funding.
And that's what's stopping this from going ahead.
Well, look, the funding is going to be a key issue, and it's estimated between 1.25 to 1.5 million per annum to run it. The HSE will have to identify a facility in the city. My personal belief is that it should be on a medical campus. I know, in the media in the recent days, you have a lot of people in local radio stations saying, not in my backyard. And you can understand that, and you can't blame people for that. But the other side of the coin is like the main thing, or the main ethos behind a SIF or a supervised injection facility is to save lives. Yeah, exactly. And these are people that are down and out. And,
and can't make decisions, which is the important thing. A lot of people think that they can, and they say they must need to, have to have the want for it to change, but they're incapable of making the decisions.
And I think for that, is it's involved in trauma. I mean, I think Timmy said there, no one gets up in the morning and says, I'm going to try drugs. There's a trauma behind this thing, and people start to self-medicate to make themselves feel better about themselves and their lives. I think with SIPs, though, it not alone will be of benefit to the person that's going through that and keeping them safe, but it keeps the city safe, because you then don't have needles around the place where people can go and do it properly. You don't have deaths that with a clean needle shouldn't happen, but they are, because they're not available. And I think all around there's a benefit to the city. And I think, Colm, you kind of expressed that. I know the lads have been at this.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting you said the health campus, because there's loads of space over St. Finbarr's Hospital. It's right next to Arbor House, where many people in addiction go in here for the methadone and stuff like that. So it would make sense that it would probably be located there. But if I just want to touch, because both of Caitríona and Dan, you would be affected by street drug use in different ways. You work with people that use drugs, and Dan, you work in you're director of the Cork Life Centre. There was a school education centre where needles are found at the entrance, and one of the big controversies around street drug use is its proximity to schools. So, I suppose I come to you first, Dan. How do you think that a supervised injection facility in Cork would help your cause in the school?
Well, I think there's the human side of this, right? Where you're going to save people's lives. I think that's, to me, is the big one, right? And it's been proved. I mean, the research is there that these save lives. And the other thing then is that you never have a fear. If you're going to have that, the fear of having, I mean, there's a number of schools have come in and said lately and over the last couple of years that they found needles in the grounds in the morning. No. That'll disappear, particularly if it's no judgment, and these SIPs are no judgment, and there has to be that. People will use it if they believe it's setting out to do what they're doing. It's not judging them. It's not really coming along to identify them so that they're going to be charged. And I think it's going to make a huge difference. The other thing, I've had young people in the past that would take those steps. I think, we should remember in Cork that we missed the first wave of heroin injections.
That's right.
Because it was in Dublin. And what people down here saw in Dublin was people dying on the streets. Now, we'll get to that very quickly. We have it happening already, but we'll get to a lot more the way things are going with heroin. You're right. It won't stop heroin. It won't stop people using heroin. What it will do is it'll make it safer, but it will also give people an opportunity to build the other services around it. Like, when we're talking, and I'd say 90, I'm not sure what the things are, but I'd say they're well into the 90s, 90% of all young people, are young men and young women are injecting. And the most of that is around trauma, and it's around early childhood experiences and this and all. And we talk a lot about trauma. It's like a lot of other things, but we do very little. If you talk about it, it doesn't change anything. You need to talk about it, raise awareness, but then we need the services to act. And at the moment, the services are not acting in a coherent manner to stop this. And I think if Colm and the lads, look, this is the 100 podcast, right? And I think one of the things that's come across in all of this, right, is that people can come back.
Yeah.
They can if they're alive.
Exactly, yeah.
They can if they're alive. Exactly. And James, I know you've talked about it.
You overdosed over by your centre.
And I still see it.
Right? And who's to say, right? There's not somebody that'll overdose now and they get themselves into treatment and then they're in the Lord Mayor's chamber 8 years later. That's how things can turn around. But when somebody dies, that person in addiction dies, but all the potential goes with them. And Caitríona, you've come across tragedy a lot because of the nature of your work. But how do you think it could help your service users?
Well, I think if we put a whole package together, that it'll work. We're missing the whole package, and the Lord Mayor agrees on this as well. We all agree on it, and I know you guys agree on it as well. And we need to do that. I have people that come to penny dinners and they'd stand at the door and they're either looking for drugs or they've taken drugs, and then there's, Caitríona, what'll I do? I don't know what, and they're standing there and they're asking me what can they do. But I have very little information to give them, and I have very little to tell them that they can do. It's all very fine saying, well, give up the drugs or give up the drink. That doesn't work. They're incapable of helping themselves. And then there's no place for me to say, well, you can go here or you can go there. We have recovery meetings and penny dinners, and Timmy and James, how successful they are. Yeah. And it's just brilliant. And the lads that go there and the lads that roll it out, there's something within the whole lot of them and they want to attract more in, and that's what they do, and they help people. But when I have somebody standing outside the door, it could be a woman, it could be a young girl, it could be a man, it could be a young boy. But where am I going to go tonight, Caitríona? What am I supposed to do? I don't have the answer, and I, as a human being listening to this, feel very upset and sad like that we don't have those answers in place. So we need to put, your idea a while ago about coming together and putting a package in place, right, that will work, and enforcing that, and making it work more. And we've seen people that have come back And we've seen them being through the mill and going through the mill again and coming back again. And we've seen them then staying clean for a very long time and kind of reaching a place where they want to be. And they're able to make choices and they get there. And when we see that, you know, for us, it's absolutely brilliant that we've played even the tiniest part. Yeah. You know, like somebody came recently and said, I'm 12 months clean, Caitríona. Yeah. And I said, brilliant. And he was so excited to tell me, you know, and I was there and I was saying, and how are you feeling? He was saying, grand. He said, but I have something to tell you. I said, what's this? You were a bitch. But I worked. And he used another word as well. And he said to see, but I worked. He said, I needed that. And
sometimes you need that.
You know, and just to tell him, you know, to say it straight out. Like,
you don't need a yes man around you when your back is against the wall. Like.
I know Timmy is going to come in there, but Timmy, just before you come in, I think we also have to look at how we deal with mental health. This idea that someone with dual diagnosis can't be treated is absolutely crazy. Because if we don't treat and if we don't work with, it's like the chicken and the egg, which came first. I mean, some are a mental health problem where the trauma is causing that. The drugs are medicating that. And to take that away, you could be leading. So I think our services there has to be a service put in place that will deal with people that are dual diagnosis. If you don't, then you are going to see more people dead. And some people might be able to find the strength to come off the drugs to go into the treatment. But that is a difficult road to follow because, you know, coming off the drugs doesn't take away the trauma that was there in the first place. And I think it needs to be a bit by bit. And I think, you know, we should be offering. And it starts with, like, it doesn't just happen to someone being 25 years of age and suddenly I don't even like they're in addiction. That has started from the time they were kids, in most cases. Yep. And they've medicated. And as everybody that I've ever known to take drugs will know, you know, you use some things first, that loses impact after a while. And that is why you have people trying higher and higher. And that's why you have people injected. Yeah. And it's massive trauma they're dealing with.
And maybe, if I could just say, maybe this is a chance for all of us, you know, as Lord Mayor, but as a brother, Colm, like to say that maybe it's about time there's enough strong characters here in the city, and if we all came together and threw the book at it, maybe we could do something. We need to be able to do that, pick up that book, fire it at it, and hit it with whatever it needs to be hit.
It does.
Definitely,
it does. And I think we could do
Caitríona.
it.
I was firstly going to say something to yourself there around what you do over in Penny Dinners. You know, you spoke there earlier about sometimes you can't help people, and I know this from because I know you quite well. I know this because sometimes you can't help people, and a week later you might hear something happen to that person. How does somebody deal with something like that? Because that must be one of the most difficult things, like, you know, to have somebody in, and particularly because you deal with a lot of people who are homeless, who have mental health issues, who are suffering massively, and they don't even understand what's going on from. How does one? Do you get your own form of counselling or help with all this kind of stuff?
I think between us inside and Penny Dinners, we kind of look after each other. It's like we have kind of a self-care kind of thing inside. But if somebody comes and asks me something, if I can't do it, I have to tell them the truth. That I can't do it. And I tell them I'm sorry. And I was saying I wish I could, but I'll keep trying to try and change things for you to see. And then if I hear something, you know, it would hit you here because, you know, I'm on one part of it, like I'm saying to them, you know, I'm telling them the truth that there's nothing there for them. There's nothing I can do. And I can't take them by the hand and fix them and stuff. It's just, I'm just not capable or able to do that. And so, but when I hear something, I know that I would have tried in some way to try and get them to hang on. And you know, like recently there was a guy jumped into, you know, going into the water and somebody caught him and they pulled him out. And we know him, he comes to Penny Dinners every day and he's always very polite to me and he's not Irish. But on this particular day, he was probably too drunk to realise what he was doing. But he they got him out anyway, and the fire brigade, the guards, the whole place was surrounded. And he went up and walked across the bridge by the Mercy, the red bridge there. And then he was coming down the other side, and he decided he'd jump in from across the water. So we were all on this side. He had run across and was down by McDonald's Paints. So he stood in the wall inside the barrier, the rail. And everybody was looking, and they were, oh God. And I just wrote his name across at him. And I shouted, it's Caitríona. I said, don't do it. It's Caitríona. And I knew what he'd say, and he did say it. He said, sorry, Caitríona. And he got down because he's too polite. Yeah. And I knew I had to take a gamble on that, at the minute, and I see one of the firemen looking at me, when I shouted across, and he said, Jesus, he got down, but...
It shows the nature of him, he didn't want to let you down.
He didn't want, and
respect as well.
And I get that, as well from an awful lot of people, and it helps even when we were in the Ukraine there, oh, we're so glad you're back, we were praying for you, I lit a candle for you, and to hear all that, as well, that it's not just one way, it's works both ways. Amazing. People respect us, and they talk to us, and they tell us that they might I saw your daughter in town, and oh, your new grandson is gorgeous, and things like that, and that's wonderful.
And all they want to do is talk to you, really.
That's all. That's all. And we get some that will come.
That's it. Yeah.
Somebody asked me this morning, how do I deal with people that will come and they're cranky, and they're having a bad day, and they want to just mout off at someone. And I say, I'm letting the secret out, and I say, I go straight for the jugular. I say, not today. Oh, you wouldn't believe what happened to me. You wouldn't believe what's wrong at home. Oh my God, I swear. And I had to come in here, and I should be at home, and I should be doing this. And I'm not well, I'm sick. I have diabetes, my blood sugars are all over the place. And then, all right, Caitríona, all right. And it stops, but it's just that I have no other way of saying to them, I can't do anything for you, but I'll try and get you out of the frame of mind by thinking of me,
I took a couple of kids to Dublin the week before last, and we were going around. We were supposed to do an interview and never showed. The guy got COVID and it was cancelled last minute. But we're walking around Dublin, and I have a habit now of just anyone that's homeless looking, sitting on it. If whatever is my, I'll give it. But what I do is I'll stand and I'll talk. Because one of the things I learned from, if you do that, is what you get back out of it. That's what, human contact. They're sitting on a bridge, there could be thousands passing, there's no contact. And I think, people say, what can I do? There's something you can do. Chat to someone. Don't act as judge and jury. I mean, if I give someone money and I say, don't buy drink, I don't know what that person is going to go through. They're drinking for some reason. Yeah. Could be that they're afraid of being homeless at night, as you know, and they need to be out of it to be able to do what they're doing. The other thing I would say is that you journey with people. And the journey can be as long as they're with you. Sometimes that journey doesn't need to go places. And I think you just journey. And that's what you do, and I think that's what Caitríona does. We journey with people. I'm journeying with kids. Caitríona is journeying probably with some of the same kids as they get older. That's right. And I think that's hugely important. And there's nothing better, and Caitríona would know this, than someone coming back. I have no one better from above. I have one kid I'm not a kid anymore now, he's a grown man. And he'd be out of it. And he'd still pop up and he'd say hello, and I sit him down on the bench and we'll sit and we'll chat. I'm not going to turn him away.
No.
Because I know the lad, and I'm not afraid. And why would you be afraid of someone you know so well?
Exactly.
Same as Caitríona. And I've seen Caitríona do that over, which is brilliant.
But sometimes you have to have strong boundaries as well.
Yes.
Well, you do, and you have to see if they're interfering with the kids or what they're running above now.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry, James. I was going to bring back to Colm there and just maybe hit off a little bit of politics around your own kind of views around politics in some of the issues we're talking about here, particularly around mental health. And it's my view, as I was going to say to Don a while ago, that maybe something should be introduced within schools at a young age. Kids should be able to there should be classes for kids to be taught how to deal with their emotions and their thinking mind, and meditation should be introduced as well for them to get a bit regulated and to understand different things. And by introducing something like this, right, at a young age within our schools for kids that are developing, it's my belief, right, and it's actual factual, okay, that in 20 years' time, we will be looking at a drop in drug addiction and crime and all homelessness. If we can, these kids might be going through all sorts of home. But if they're going into schools and the teachers are in there and they're trauma informed and they know what they're doing, we can change things. You know, we have a massive crisis with homelessness in this country and everything else. What would be some of the main things that if you were Taoiseach in the morning? No, this is my vision. If you have views that you have today, why not? If we need people with these kind of views in power as well, if you know who could really start making some of these.
We need people that aren't afraid.
I think, yeah, 100%, Caitríona. You need people that aren't afraid. And you've hit the nail on the head there, Timmy. It needs, as I said there, the book needs to be rewritten.
Yeah.
Across the board. If we started a program such as that within our education system, within the curricular system in Bunscoil or primary school, and it led on, to CSPE, or I don't know what they teach now in secondary school, CSPE in my day, but
wellness,
and tie all that in together, inform people on mental health, inform people of the process of compassion, of love to one another, and stuff like that. But if I was Taoiseach in the morning, I would definitely look at our education system from the junior cycle to mid cycle and at the senior cycle, to how we can inform people like that. And I really do agree with you 100%, Timmy. In about 20 years' time, you would see a massive difference. Yeah. It's all about education, and unfortunately, the majority of poor souls around the world, not only in our city, that fall into addiction, into alcoholism, into substance abuse, into, gambling addiction or anything like that. 9 times, not 9 times out of 10, but the majority of the time, they haven't finished second level education.
Yeah.
And had they, and I'm not giving by one stretch of the imagination, throwing, crap all over our education system. We've one of the finest education systems in Northern Europe. But
it's just missing that.
It's just missing that.
It needs to evolve as like, when I think about myself and Timmy and other people that Caitríona and Dan would work with now, when we use drugs, it's not that we were bad people, and we all agree here, right? It's just the lack of coping skills. Like I'm feeling this in our turmoil, or this inner pain and conflict, insecurity, and all these things, and I use drugs to help me cope with that. Like, but when we developed the proper coping skills, we don't need the drugs, but we had to go through a whole lot of stuff to get them coping skills. But them coping skills can be taught to people at a very early age as well.
But James, like, if you think about it, like, what age are you now?
36.
36. You're the same age as me.
Yeah.
41.
You're 41.
Oh, yeah. He's 41, I'm 36.
Well, I'm 36, but I remember going to school. Like, we were taught, and I'm sure not to cast any aspersions on but you were in school long. You finished school long before I did.
But the same stuff that they're doing now.
But the way we were taught in school, our religion class, there was no coping mechanism. It was from an archaic system, and I think we're a product of our education.
Yeah.
And here we are 20 years after, in my case, 20 odd years after my education, and I can still remember what coping skills I was given in school. And it was from a religious background, and, divorce is bad, and, this is bad, and that's bad, and homosexuality is bad. That was drilled into us as kids. Yeah. So, like, that system is obviously broken, and thank God we've got away from it.
And I had the honour of having a couple of years up with Dan and the young people up there, and something that you do well, Dan, up there. You have the academic side of it, but it's also the psychological and the social development of the young person. And it's vital, isn't it?
It is, and you see, I worry, right, because when schools hear about trauma informed, they send a teacher to be trauma informed. It's the whole school has to be trauma informed. You can't do it by one person. And the other thing I would say very quickly is, guidance counsellors are guidance counsellors. They take it to tell you what you're going to lead to. You need counselling and therapy within schools. You're dealing with kids that already have trauma. They're not waiting to get it. They have it. Now, that can be from lots of reasons, right? Culturally, though, if you think about a culture, it's not even school culture. Irish men have 2 emotions.
Yeah.
They're either angry or they're delirious. And they're delirious when they're drunk. And like, this is what we're dealing with. And we're in a culture, we're saying to people is, you have to be strong, you can't cry. That's a lot of crap. Nonsense. How do you show people you're sad? And I think our kids pick up on that very quickly. Now, we're not great, the adults. Like, we must remember, because I hear all the time from adults, oh, they're different now to what they are. Because when I was growing up, the worst thing you could do was to go and get drunk, but you could get to drink inside a pub that was served underage. I'd say, you know this as well. And the only place I ever smelled drugs is the pub is around the corner over there. You'd go in and you would hit the corner and they'd be smoking dope. We have changed. Now, it isn't the kids that brought the drugs in, right? I laugh at this at times. It isn't. And it isn't even the Kinnans or whoever you want. Someone had the money to bring that in and they're not caught. I don't know where they are, but they're not caught and they've reaped the benefit by people's misery. I think we do have to understand that every family culture is different. It is not the same. Every family is not the same. There are issues, and the only way you can deal with is on a one-to-one basis. And while I agree with Timmy on meditation, it's a good thing to teach. Yoga, we tried yoga above, and it worked. And believe it or believe it not, the boys were quicker into it than the girls. And I think anything that will help someone, and particularly when they're already stigmatized, because they are. In this country, I think we're too quick to label addict, autism, ADHD, disadvantage. They're kids. They're kids. You love the kid. You see the issue here. You work on the issue, but you love the kids. I think most kids want to be told they're loved. Yeah. And if you don't tell them that, they will look for elsewhere.
Yeah, and we went to Liverpool. We were invited over to Liverpool, and we went to, the Lord Mayor came out to meet us and everything, and we weren't expecting the welcome that we got there, but we were down outside Goodison Park, where the Everton team are, and they have food banks over there, and they collected all the matches, and the players bring stuff, the management brings stuff, everybody, but they have it fantastic. They have a row of buildings where there's all different things going on, and when they leave Goodison Park now to go to their new grounds, they're leaving that to the people of Liverpool for more services, to help everybody, because they firmly believe in it, and they put that message out there. But they have a thing, and it says, hunger doesn't wear club colours.
Yeah.
But for everything that's going on in the city, nothing should have club colours. We are one at the end of the day, and we're only passing through. We're only going from A to Z. Exactly. And that time could skip out for any of us at C, D, or E, and the amount of suicides that we have in our country and in our city. They're so sad, for the families that suffer because of it. They're tragic, but they can be preventable as well, because we have to look and give powers to the authorities, like, for example, the Gardaí, to be able to stop some stuff that's going on, give them more powers. They need it. And there's no point in saying, like you hear the guards always saying, it's okay, we arrest somebody and then he's left walk and stuff like that. All systems that we have going, while they're coping and they're doing the best job and the best of their ability, we need to start changing some stuff fairly lively to bring it up to scratch and to make it doable and workable.
You've kind of hit the nail on the head there, and I think we need national legislation on possession of small substances, to be quite honest with you. And I've spoken about this with yourselves. Yeah. I've spoken about it recently.
Decriminalisation.
Decriminalisation to a certain extent.
Yeah.
I'm not speaking of, decriminalising the drug cartels.
We're not legalising anything.
I'm not legalising anything. No. But if you have...
That's an important clarification.
We're not legalising anything at all. But you need to decriminalise it, because I came in here yesterday morning at a series of meetings yesterday morning, and a few radio interviews about the SIF, about the supervised injection facility. And as God is my witness, I was drinking a cup of tea, looking out the window, and at 7:30 in the morning, there was a poor soul injecting on the bridge over where we heard the beautiful music this evening. But there was a poor soul there at 7:30 this morning, and had the guards stumbled across him, the current legislation there would have been at the moment, if he was found in possession, depending on the quantity that he had to, stave off the sickness for the day, he would be arrested. He would probably be brought to the Bridewell or Anglesey Street, then brought before the court, summons, and then done with intent or possession. And, depending on the quantity, it can be done with intent with possession to supply. Yeah. And then it's been treated as a criminal problem, but it's not a criminal problem.
But Colm, look, I agree with you. I fully agree with you. But we were supposed to this year have a citizens' assembly on drugs, and we were supposed to have a citizens' assembly on education. The drugs one is gone. Now, what we're all saying here, I think we're all talking that trauma is the thing that normally takes kids into drugs, right? they're not setting out to harm people. And so, but look what we're doing. Kids are traumatized. We're trying to get them on a track. They get a conviction for possession. They can't stop that. Their need is too much from the trauma. They get another one. They ain't getting work.
Yeah.
So what you're after doing now in one fell swoop, you recognise that there's an illness there that you're not seeing, but you know it's there. But you know what? We can't deal with that. So what we are going to do is we're going to penalise you. And that's removing hope from people that have no hope.
But Don, imagine if the guard came across to that poor soul, and we had legislation in place and said, listen, I'm not going to take you to the Bridewell, I'm not taking you to Anglesey Street, I'm taking you out to the health services, and you're going to be treated.
Yeah.
And, forget the courts. What were you caught with? Tiny new possession to keep yourself unsick for the day. Yeah. You bring them out to a medical facility, and here's what's before you. You can go to a methadone program, you can try to come off it. There's treatment centres here, there's counsellors, there's accommodation through council. Imagine that was the legislation.
That's the way to go.
We have to think about it as well. Like, if a young person uses drugs in school, 15 or 16, we think, oh my God, that's terrible. Poor child. What's the child? That young person then turns 17, 18, comes into Penny Dinners, Katrina, comes off the cool mind to me. That's the same young person. But now they're classed as an adult, and all of a sudden they're J-word, they're still a child. They're still that hurt child. They're just 18 now. Last year they were a child.
They're still the child that's hurting inside. I don't care what age you are.
But we have to look at the people on the street, they're the hurt kids that come through your school, Dan. And they're the same people that me and Katrina have in our service,
You know what? They also are. Do you know who these children also are? They're them children that you seen on the street 20 years ago, 15 years ago, and you said, God helps, that poor child is going through torture. They're watching this constantly, the mother and father on drugs, they're neglected. That is that child that you're calling this and that and the other. That's exactly what it is. Why not look at that human being here 15 years later that's destroyed from drug addiction, has no choice to be the way they are. They're like that because they're completely addicted. Why not look at them when they were 15 years ago, when they were walking around the street in their nappy?
Well,
because their parents are
funding, though, James. I mean, funding. Fundings. But the money is there. I mean, I'd argue this all the time. The money is there. I mean, our systems are broken. CAMS is broken. Our care system is broken. Our addiction system. We put beds for kids down in Kilkenny. That's it, like for the whole of the country.
Homelessness.
It's a joke. Homelessness is broken. And these kids then are to blame. So what do we do with them? We send them to Oberstown, where we pay $350,000 per year per child to keep the child locked up. That child is not a criminal. I mean, why is a child in care brought to the guards because they break a window, they break a door, or they break something? If we were to do that as parents, all of us here as parents, were to bring our child, if they broke something in the house to the guards, you'd need 2 million Oberstones up in Knockneeny and Foreign Regis alone. You wouldn't, it's just ridiculous. And I think, why not spend the money in helping that family? I mean, it's obvious, because what you do in the long term is, I don't believe it's economics. You shouldn't have anything to do with economics. But even economically, if you look at it, if you can get that child right and the family right, you have a happier child, you have a more contented society, and you're going to be paying less, and you will be penalising less. Why are we penalising kids? For something they don't understand themselves. Not a mind to say us understanding it.
What's something as well we have to think about coming down the line is, like, Cork City has had a good response to the Ukrainian war, and we're starting to take in Ukrainian people. That's a very traumatised nation.
It is.
And we need the services for them coming into the city. But what my fear is, and they're very welcome, we did a podcast last week with Ukrainians, 2 journalists, they write for the newspaper in Kiev, they were in Cork now, they were on holidays when they were invaded, blah, blah, blah. Great podcast, it'll be out in a couple of weeks, right? But the Ukrainians coming in here, we're already strapped for resources. Now, they're welcome, but my fear is increases in racism, a bit of hostility towards them, because people are competing for housing stock, people are competing for health, mental health, addiction service, and now we've all this influx, and are we really resourcing it?
This is why we have politicians, and I suppose it's the time to remind the politicians, to remind our governments, our previous governments, that they have a job. They're being paid, but to look after everybody, and they're being paid for solutions to be put in place. I think I was over in the Ukraine. We were over twice, and we plan to go again because we know that they need a lot of stuff out there. When they're here, they'll be looked after. People will look after them, and again, it's causing consternation amongst a huge amount of people. Like, what's going to happen now? It's not the Ukrainians that we should be on about. It's the politicians, and we should be saying to them, like, somebody needs to lead the pack, get it up there and not be afraid and risk. Like a politician, sometimes I get the impression politicians are afraid of saying something that's kind of risky, and taking the lead and say, no, this is what we should have, and I'm going to fight for it. For the people, because it's my job. You see, the thing about, I'd
agree with you 100%. 100%. Like, as a city and a county, I was on our community task force meeting today. We're sitting on about 1,500 Ukrainian nationals in the city and county at the moment. You've all seen the scenes that are going to be over the 6-1 news and the 5:30 news today, are probably, they're gone at this stage, of the centre below in Mill Street. That's no way to have people inside in the Green Glens Arena, effectively a camp.
It's direct provision.
It's direct provision. It's direct provision. I think, personally, and as a politician, I would agree with you 100%. And other politicians may disagree with me, but I've spoken with colleagues up and down the length and breadth of the country, and I think now, in relation to the stresses we're experiencing as a society from our own housing needs. And then when you add in the estimated amount of people we'll take in from Ukraine, it's possibly going to be in the tune of the same population as Cork City itself. So about 250,000. I think now, with money at an all-time low on international markets, that we as a government need to borrow heavily and build relaxed planning laws, fast-track planning applications, fast-track the building of houses. Don touched on it a minute ago in relation to corporations or councils building social houses, as we've done many years ago. I would have a slight disagreement with you, but we won't follow over it now. But I think, but we because what's happened, relying on the private sector has proved he's right. That system doesn't work. Doesn't work. But we do need to fast-track everything.
Do you think we can get it done?
I would be hoping that the pressure coming on us as a nation now with, just clearing COVID, coming in with the Ukrainian crisis, and our own housing needs, that it's effectively will be the perfect storm for civic authorities to get the finger out and start the ball rolling.
But you see, Colm, I think again, right, I'm for, and I was in Ukraine as well, and what brought me there was the women and the children. I'm sorry, but people say to me that Putin is I'm left-wing Putin is no, you're dealing with two fascists, but that doesn't matter. What matters is you've kids and you have women who are suffering. You've kids that should never see the things they're after seeing, and you've women, unfortunately, as in all wars, who are going to be sexually assaulted, raped. They're coming in here. We don't have the mental health facilities to deal with. Whereas we've asked people for houses, and people rose to the occasion and said to bring them in. That's grand for 8 weeks. But if you have a child upstairs crying in the night because they saw their father being killed, or they saw the men around them, or they saw bodies in the ground, how long can you keep that up? And I think, I have another question on this, right? There's a bit of hypocrisy in all of this, because, and I know Caitríona would have done the same. When the other emergencies came on in Syria, in Afghanistan, and in Iran, Kurdistan, we supported those areas with aid going out. We did it both through a Muslim charity. And then people said to me, well, what are you going out there for? I'm going out there for women and kids, and I would do that every day of the week. What I saw was women who were pregnant that could be moved or moved. Women who were pregnant and had other medical conditions could not be moved, and kids who could not be moved for the medical were in bunkers. No electricity, no water. Now, that meant even sheets were disposable. Think about it. Think about any of us, where our wives are, Caitríona, probably better than most, giving birth to a baby in the dark. It defies what we understand. But this happened in Syria. The same guy that's doing it now in the Ukraine, the Russians did exactly the same to Syrian hospitals. He's a war criminal now. He wasn't a war criminal back then. Now, the other thing we Irish have to look at, right? 120,000 is too much. I don't think that's ever going to be here because I don't think we can take them. I mean, where are you going to put them? We're even going to lower the likes of arenas and stuff like that. I mean, we couldn't take 3,000 Syrians, which is what we agreed to take, and we now take 120,000 Ukrainians. I mean, to me, that shows something that disappoints me as a very proud Irishman. Then there's a racism involved there, and it's inherent because I think the reason it's easier to take Ukrainians is they're white. Now, that is the case. They can walk down the streets, we won't know, but we will see Syrians and we will see others. And I think as a country, we've always given, and I think we should do that. We should have, because if every Irish person that claims to be Irish around the world was to come back in, we'd have millions. We're one of the biggest contributors to immigration.
That's right.
Right around the world. So we should stand with people. But
we're a very
don't make them worse than what we were.
We're a very tolerant people. Here in Cork, in penny dinners, we have people, like people would say to us, like, you know, and one question that comes up a lot, if I have to go someplace to give a talk, have you much foreigners? I say, yeah, and they're brilliant volunteers. They're outstanding. Right, and then they look at me, they're actually volunteers. I said, yeah, like our chef at the minute is French, and we have another guy at the weekend, he's Polish. We have an Afghani chef, you know, from all over.
And we're the same,
but that doesn't matter because they're just good people.
People are people.
You know?
People are
people. But a lot of people seem to, you know, like ask that question, and I would love to I do respond by saying, oh yeah, they're fantastic volunteers altogether. I try to overlook to them that they've asked me the question, like, is there people coming to eat like that are from different countries? You know, but I don't answer a yes, because if I do, I'm afraid of what's going to come next, and I'm afraid of what I'm going to have to say.
I agree with Don, like in what you're saying in relation to how Putin has been treated as a war criminal now in comparison to in Syria. And that's not just an Irish issue, that's Western world.
That's the Western
world. And there is a race element behind it. You know, there is. And it's
Let's bring it back
wrong.
a small bit there, right? We're all Irish, we're all Cork people here, okay? Okay. We've had a housing crisis in this country for a long time now, okay? And all of a sudden, right, we have a lot of Ukrainians coming into the country, okay? We have homeless Irish people. This is the elephant in the room now, nobody's talking about it, okay? We have homeless Irish people in this country for a long, long time. The Irish government have changed the laws around taxes for landlords to house Ukrainian families, okay? We have Irish families living in hotels. I'm not taking any side. I'm just addressing something that nobody else is talking about here.
You're right.
We have Irish families living in B&Bs, in hotels, right, for a long, long time, and the Irish government knows that. Why hasn't I'm not finished. Why hasn't that been addressed? Why haven't the laws been changed for these people? Because the money was still going to be the same. I don't understand. I can see this happening. If we're going to take in a lot more Ukrainian families, which is absolutely great, it's the human thing to do. I think it's right. But we have to change the laws for our own people as well.
Exactly.
I'd agree with you.
And it has to be done immediately before
things
start to fester.
When I say our own people, I mean everybody.
Exactly. Look at the people that have been displaced now on our own, homeless, that were in hotels and B&Bs.
I'll give you an example of what I saw in Poland, right? So we had to take an Airbnb. We're supposed to meet people over in the Ukraine. There's a curfew. They weren't going to make it back into curfew. So we had to take an Airbnb. And up half a mountain. And we got up there and we got into a log cabin. 5 of us. With enough bedrooms for us. With a shower, with everything in it. And I looked at that in the morning. I said, this is absolutely fabulous. We couldn't build them here. Our planning law would not give us permission to build these. It's a disgrace, 25, 35,000.
You're right, and that will have to change, John. That will have to change immediately for houses to be developed. Planning laws, rezoning, the Cork City Council are going to have to look at it immediately and rezone agricultural land and start building houses and apartment blocks and whatever needs to be done for Irish people, Ukrainian people, whoever.
There's another elephant in the room that we haven't addressed, and I think, you know, when I think in Colm, I don't know what your opinion is.
Like a zoo here with all the elephants, Dan.
There is so many, right? And I think you'll get this. we have never addressed the situation of traveller housing. We don't. It's never been addressed. We try to assimilate them. We're not giving them any background knowledge. And we're still in a situation where we haven't addressed it. And that's true of every council. And I'm not blaming you, because when I was in the council, it was still the same. We haven't spent the money here on it. Right. And a lot of that is done to NIMBY.
Let me add one thing to what Timmy said, and then I'll let you come in, Colm. But what Timmy makes... this is great, but I just wanted to say, like, Ukrainians are welcome, and so are the Syrians, and you know that this is what we need to do. And I'm very proud that Cork City will, you know, take in these people. But my worry and my fear is that if you're in a council house and you know there's 8 people living in a 3-bed and the kids are sick and they're on waiting lists and the children are on spectrums and they can't get seen, then a Ukrainian family comes in and they get what is perceived to be preferential treatment, is that you're just going to create conflict because the people that have the money are so far removed from the communities that it's very hard to look up, and it's easier then for people in council houses on waiting lists, refugees, to just fight amongst each other for the scraps. So that's my fear, is that they'll all be kind of fighting for scraps, and the people at the top are very far removed from it. You know, but I'll let you come in.
No, look, I obviously have listened to all different viewpoints there, and you know, as Don said, Don was on the council. We had an issue with traveller accommodation. We've had issues with homelessness. But just to come back to, and it's no different today, Don, as well. But best laid plans of mice and men, in relation to what you're touching on there, in relation to our planning laws, they do need to be completely reevaluated. There may be, a misconception, and it may be disingenuous of myself not to correct it. The Ukrainian nationals that will be coming into the country will not be considered for social housing stock in any of the local authorities in the country. We have our own housing problem. We can't now dilute that by adding more people into the system. Yeah. What we're going to do with the Ukrainian nationals and the migrants coming in is a whole different quagmire to what we need to do for our own housing. But I do believe there's an opportunity there, because if we need to house all these Ukrainians in mass accommodation shelters like the Green Glens Arena, which I would equate to effectively a labour camp, because that's what it's like, which is no dignity for any of them. And we do have our housing list. Now, in fairness, and I'm not being political here, housing lists are coming down all over the country, but they're coming down far, far, far too slowly. So they're going the right direction, but they're not coming the right direction quick enough. And I did speak with a colleague up the country, and he said, if we could fast track planning, look at the cabin that you mentioned, these prefabricated houses that are retrofitted off-site, land in the back of a lorry, onto a site with services, in rezoned land, as you said. Now, we're currently in the part of our development plan, because it's funny enough, we've rezoned, there's going to be, like, between Docklands and Ballincollig and all around the city, like, we have rezoned lands for an additional 6,000 units.
I'll take on the construction contract.
No matter. You can send a tender to the GC in the morning.
You're not supposed to say that on camera, Timmy.
But no, I agree with you, Timmy. That the system we have is broken. The planning needs to be fast-tracked. The zoning needs to be fast-tracked. The VAT, from a builder's point of view, needs to be waived to incentivize builders to build quick enough, because there's another elephant in the zoo here, Timmy, and that's inflation. So we now have a perfect storm. We have mass influx of a migrant population. We have a problem ourselves. We have builders that are in fixed price contracts and are ringing local authorities, the length and breadth of the country, and say, I'll finish this development for you, but I can't, it's going to break me and I won't be able to tender for the next development. So what'll happen is we'll have companies go to the wall. So we need to look, and the government needs to look at it in deeper, and the Department of Local Housing need to look at it. And I've spoken with my colleagues in government on this, and they are actively looking at it, and cross-party support on it as well. We need to look at financing a brand new package to tie every local authority into the country, sing from the same hymn sheet. We have the Land Development Agency now, which is something of a mass version of what we had as a local authority when we built houses as a local authority, and they're going to do that across the country. But that's all great on paper, but that's where it is at the moment. It needs to be faster. Someone needs to light a fire under their arse.
Exactly, and we have a lot of issues that need to be addressed, because we have the hospital issues, we have the trolleys, people, and that's going on for years and years as well. Every problem we have came before any crisis, I suppose, that's happening, especially the Ukrainian one at the minute. So therefore, we can't lay that blame at the people who are unfortunate enough to find themselves the victims of war. No, that blame has to be laid solely up in Dublin, up at the Dáil, and they have to be told, pull their finger out.
Katrina, remember when the pandemic hit? Do you remember when we said we couldn't do this and we couldn't do that?
I know.
Look how quick we could do things when we needed to.
Exactly.
Look at the Chinese.
Look
what the Chinese done in the hospital.
And I think that's the maddening thing, and I think that's what people are feeling.
I spoke with an executive in Cork City Council, and we're twinned with Shanghai in China as a city. And there was a group from China over, and they were just talking to our executives, and they were being brought around the city, and it was great, right? But the group that were over were planning executives from China, and they were, what's your planning laws now if you want to build, let's say, this or that? Well, you have to go up to this, and then you have a Part 8, and then it can get a judicial review, and then it can go before the Supreme Court, and then if that doesn't, just blah, blah, blah. And he goes, what do you do? And the Chinese fellow turned around, he goes, we just do it. So,
Exactly.
But I'm not saying we should approach that. That's communism. But I'm saying there's too much bureaucracy in our system.
But at the moment, you have to look at how to solve the problems we have with all these different issues with housing and this is how you solve it.
And there's a bigger problem. There's a bigger problem with this.
I suppose we should bring out as well is, for example, take the hospitals. If you're running a business and if you manage it badly, it's going to go down the Swanee Lake, and therefore there's, the hospitals are managed. Everything we have in this city is managed, and if it's been managed, if it's not been managed right, it's going to go down, and therefore we should look at management and just say, come on, let's do this, let's get the services up to 100% and have them rolled out, and we know people that are dying, we know people that are suffering, we know people that are hungry. People come to us. Do you think anybody wants to come to Penny Dinners for their
see the HSE? There's too much bureaucracy in the HSE, and I have no problem in saying that.
But there is
we'll go back to the regionalised health boards the way it was, and that's what's been looked at. But the reason the HSE doesn't work, and I'll be on the record, I have no problem in saying this, there's too much bureaucracy at the top. Not the people working down there.
Exactly.
But Colm,
it's the same all over. The people doing the jobs aren't getting enough support, and they need to be able to come out and say, we're doing a job here and it's not working. And can we change it, and stuff. They're not listened to. So you have the people on top who are so far removed from the working population.
But I don't think they're removed.
They've removed themselves.
They remove themselves, but they all come from local areas, right? But I think they somehow put a shield around when they go into this house. But my issue here on this is we're going to have a perfect storm because we're now expecting tourism to pick up. If tourism is picking up, all the people we have in direct provision in hotels will need new beds. They're all going to be thrown out. It's happening already. We're going to look at the B&B's thrown out. And then someone tell me how we can't build houses for people, right? But we can build apartments for foreign students that aren't here yet. And if you want to look at that, go over and look where the conference centre is supposed to be, if that ever comes. The apartments are all went away. They're aimed at foreign students. They're not for local students because you wouldn't be able to afford them. But have we used them for the people that are No, because they want them clear for next year when UCC starts up and MTU starts up again. We've cranes all over the place. Yeah. But if you look at where the cranes are, they're for student accommodation. You have the lock, you have down here, you have other places. And I think we do need to address the situation.
You've touched on something very good there, Dan.
The developers are the ones that have this blocked, and they have it blocked because they have a cartel. I don't care. I'll say there are 4 major builders. If you're a carpenter or a plumber or a painter and you want a job in any of these apartments, you have to declare yourself a company, and then they leave you. And if things go wrong, it's you lose out, and that's what they're doing. I mean, there's no such thing now as a big builder employing tradesmen. He brings people in as companies. Now that's rubbish. It is pure rubbish because the delays then are blamed all around. I mean, in other words, you talk about Shanghai. If you have a builder in Shanghai that decides he's building a maternity hospital or he's building a children's hospital in Dublin, and he goes, what? How many millions over the thing? They'll be saying, you're not finished. You're not getting paid that. You were given the time to finish, you finish it. But we seem to pay people if they take extra time. We pay them extra. And I mean, how much did millions? Is
that not the Irish way, though?
It's the wrong way. It has to change.
But you've had to understand something. You've hit the nail on the head there in relation to one thing, and that's the student accommodation that would be going up in the city, right? and they're aimed at foreign students, as you said, right? There's foreign students that are coming in here. Let's face it, the majority of them would be from well-to-do families coming in. That's the way foreign students is around the world, right?
Yeah.
So it is cost effective when these large developers are going to their funding apparatuses and they'd say, listen, I'm going to do this as a student thing, and away you go. But when you look at any of our native developers here in the city who want to build apartments, particularly social apartments, that's not stacking up at the moment, because the money that's on the table from government for social, let's say, social apartments, inflation has exceeded it by about 30%. So now the developer, as I said earlier, who's stuck in a fixed price contract, will say, I'm going to finish this, but there's no way I can build the next 30 houses for the same price as the last 30 houses. And therein lies the problem. You have funding issues. That needs to be looked at and is being looked at. But at the moment, it is not cost effective to build apartments in the city. That's why you see cranes. It's a lot of offices. A lot of offices.
Yeah.
Dublin.
So lads, we're going to bring it back a small but unchanged tack, because we've covered a lot around drug issues, homelessness, Ukrainians and all that. If we go down the education route and that stuff, we'd be here for the night. But it's been great talking with you and a great discussion. It's great that we can use our platform to highlight issues for people that don't have the voice, you know. So thanks for engaging in it. I want to ask you all one question each, and you can give me a short answer. I just want to get one role model that you have or had that got you into what you're doing today, because everybody's doing great work. So I'll start with Lord Mayor. Like one role model that you looked up to or still look up to, and one hope for the future for what you want to achieve or the city to achieve.
Like I've said this to you before, it's my grandmother, and that's been personal, you know, and I miss her every day, every single day I do, you know, and I think she's looking down on me and would be proud of me. And as I said in my speech as election as Lord Mayor, a very, very, very bitter pill for me to swallow, the fact that she wasn't there. But I look at the good times, and she was my role model. And I suppose she would say, you know, if you fall, pick yourself up and keep going. And if I look around the city as a whole of us society, I'd like to apply that logic. If we fall, we pick ourselves up and we keep going and we give each other support. And like as you said here, you know, 7-8 years ago, you almost overdosed up by Don's, and now you're sitting in the people's sitting room. Anything is possible, but if we work together. And I do believe we're never going to all agree. If we all agreed with each other, wouldn't that be a very boring place?
Exactly.
So,
but listen, she'd be super proud of you, because you're 36 years of age, you're the Lord Mayor of your city. You're giving a voice to people that don't have the voice that maybe other politicians wouldn't touch with a barge pole. So like you stand for something, you know, and she'd be immensely proud of you. So thanks again for having us.
No, thank you very much. And I know you've I won't let it slip now, but you've a big night tomorrow night. So
we're on the Late Late Show.
Yeah.
And we have our Cork City little badge for recovery.
Go up and show those jackings how it's done.
Oh, we will. Dan, role model for you, maybe growing up, or somebody that you looked up to?
Well, I tell you, there's a few. I suppose politically it would be James Connolly. Loved that man, loved reading everything about him and who he was and what he was and what he contributed. And my parents. But I think the last 16 years, it has been the young people I've had the pleasure and the honour to work with. They are the ones that I looked at. And you know, the young people, I'd like to say, maybe because I know you won't come back, you know, what's happened here, I think what we were saying here amongst all of us here is for the betterment of this city and the country as a whole, but for the city. And I'm hugely proud of what the city has done. You know, we have a city of sanctuary. We're still doing that. And I'm hugely proud of that, and I'm always going to be proud. Do I want more? Bloody sure I do. For the people right across the city. But the kids are I suppose, the ones that get me up in the morning, and they show me the way. If you're down, the kids will take you.
Brilliant. About yourself, Caitríona?
Well, for me, personally, it would have been my grandmother as well. Mine, and we just had a special relationship from, I think, day one. And as much as I love my mum and dad, you know, my grandmother lived with us, and she was kind of the head of the family, really. And I just love the things that she, when I was very little, I was very small, and you know those things, they live inside the shell, the snails, you know, we used to call them tom-tivies, and you'd sing tom-tivy, come up, you know. But I stood in one time when I was very young, and she went on to introduce me to his mother and his father and his grandparents and his brothers and his sisters and all his neighbours and the whole lot. And it taught me something very young, like don't hurt anybody, and so I carried that with me, I always think of that, and that thing goes round in my head. So it prevents me from probably being a bit cross, than because I'm not cross, as you know, like I'm very soft. But here in the city, my all-time hero is Mary Crilly. She's just an amazing woman. She has done so much for women and for men, for young girls and young boys that need somebody like Mary Crilly to fight their corner for them, with them, and be with them every step of the way, and just to help them on their road to healing as well. And she's a powerhouse. She's only that size, but she's a powerhouse of a woman. And I don't think nobody will ever understand really. And I know her a very, very long time. And like the impact that she's made on so many lives. But I suppose if we're talking about modern day heroes, like when I look at yourselves, it always brings the biggest smile, if ever, to my face, and to me, your two brothers, and I see all them in action, and all the people in the recovery group and the ladies' recovery group, and just to see them smile and to be happy, and they're all dolled up and they're all gone out, and I said, Mother God, the style, but it's so wonderful that there's a sense of this goodness and this camaraderie.
But that would have been possible only for yourself.
I think
them the room, for getting them everything that they needed, So, there's a lot of credit due to yourself for that.
Yeah, and then when I look around the room here, when I was in addiction, Caitríona fed me, when I was got out of the treatment centre and I'd no CV, Dan gave me placement to get a couple of years work experience under my belt. And when we started out the podcast, Colm, give us the leg up and give us credibility by coming on. He came up to Churchfield Green with the chain, plenty of time for the kids and the neighbours, and it gave us a bit of credibility around the echo. It's like, there's something about the Norries podcast. So I look up to everybody. I look up to Timmy. I look up to Ron for his dedication to the podcast and his flexibility.
And everybody that's involved in the background.
And everybody in the background.
Grace, Sandra, Adele, Claire, they're all...
Our wives, the people who donate to us on Patreon, Cork City Council have given us a good few grand over the last couple of years that pays for the cameras, the mics we're holding. So it's been a collective and community effort, and I'm proud to be part of it with all of you guys.
Can I come in there on that? Obviously, I had the honour and privilege of presenting Don with a Civic Award, Lord Mayor Civic Award, the first Lord Mayor Civic Award to be presented outside of City Hall.
No better vocal either.
No better vocal. I was informed the Life Centre was actually the residence of the Lord Mayor of Cork. Am I correct, Don?
At one time.
At one time. It was given up during the last pandemic, the previous pandemic.
First Lord Mayor of Cork, Daniel Hickory. There was mayors before it. Yeah.
So he lived there. But the work that Don has done in our city for education and, for disadvantaged children. And I know I've honoured you, but I just want to reiterate our thanks as a city for the work you do for our youth, our disadvantaged youth. You're a real, hero of our city, Don. Our politics may be different, but you are a real hero of our city. And then when we come to Caitríona, I'd equate you to Florence Nightingale, to be quite honest with you. And I want to thank you for all you do for our city. And I know you've got the Person of the Year, but I want to announce on the Two Norries podcast that there will be a ceremony in City Hall, and I've selected you to receive one of my Lord Mayor's Civic Awards.
Oh, thank
you
so
beautiful.
Well done,
Caitríona.
It's very funny you said that, because I put this on today because I knew I wouldn't get home to change. And they said, is someone giving you an award? And I said, no. And they said, no, she knew.
It's just a little thank you.
Oh, thank you.
And well
so
done,
much.
well deserved,
And you are our city's Florence Nightingale.
And good company.
Good company now.
That's a great way to finish the podcast.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Thanks,
Colm,
everybody.
that's amazing.
James, thanks very much. Best of luck in Dublin tomorrow night.
Not about it until late show now by 900
And I guess this night will go down in history. History was made here lots of times, and I hope tonight this will be seen as a historical move on our part to get things.
I hope this is the first of many hundreds, and that you keep going, because you're an inspiration to people.
Oh, yeah.
And really to all of us.
So you have to give a shout out to Finney as well, who's been here all day.
Yeah.
And Donald.
And Donald, we will be, Donald is
Hi, Darren. Finbar, you look as proud as the portrait of Michael Collins behind you. Not a bottle, chat.
De Valera's looking at him.
We were saying he'd make a great Lord Mayor because look at all the experience he has under his belt, He
got a gift in Hallbowl, there's a cup, and then the real Lord Mayor.
Oh, wow.
Not a bottle.
Our kids think he's too above.
Yeah.
Vote for Finbar.
Vote
You
for
hold it here
Finbar.
first. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
On to 100 man. God bless.
Thanks, lads.